Yeah, thanks, Joe, for joining us today. Found you on the Side Hustle Facebook group. We're in no way associated with them, but it's a tremendous resource for pilots. I'm not sure how much you know about this podcast in particular, but the gist of it, especially during COVID, is to provide some sort of inspiration or guidance or ideas for pilots that might be facing furlough, especially to maybe follow their dreams of a side hustle or go down the entrepreneurial journey. And when I saw you on there, you mentioned that you were a freelance developer and you've got qReveal, which we'll talk about later. But I looked into that, and that's a very fascinating platform, especially during COVID. It's almost like perfect timing, and we'll talk about whether or not that was planned, or if it just kind of by happenstance played out. But if you could maybe give us a 30 to 60 second for context, what your professional aviation background is, and then we'll roll into your the development side.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Joe Patterson. I live up in the Cleveland, Ohio area. From that area, and went to school down in Florida, and always chasing the aviation dream. Became a pilot, went through the regionals, and have been at a major for almost 6 years now. But once I got into flying mid-2000s with the regional, I was looking for not something else, but just something in addition to. I think that's one of the cool things about flying is it gives us time, even if it is time away from family in a hotel or wherever you might be, to do some other stuff. And that's kind of my personality. I've always had that drive. So that's where I revisited I took a programming course in high school and kind of revisited that, and it went from there in the mid 2000s, just growing as a developer and then putting out some projects. But that's flying wise. I guess that kind of caps that up, and where I come from with how the web development came into it.
You're at a major carrier right now. Left seat, right seat?
Currently in the right seat.
And how's COVID impacting that? Are you on reserve? Are you holding a line still?
Yeah, it's like anybody I think in the profession could say, it's impacted quite a great deal.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm happy that I've been involved in that side hustle for quite some time, whereas I've always called it, play money, the extra that I did for freelance. But now I'm trying to spool it up a little bit and kind of fill in the gaps. So it's nice to shift gears a little bit.
Off topic, you said you're from Ohio. Does that make you a Buckeye?
Yeah, by geographic location, yeah, I'm a Buckeye, but I like the Browns. I like watching the Browns too. So.
I grew up in Michigan. I'm a Lions fan and Michigan fan, and you guys have dominated us, at least in college. I have taken it upon myself to become a Bucks fan. Now that I live in Tampa, I've lived here for 10 years, and Brady has enabled me to become a Bucks fan too. But
awesome.
You back in the late 2000s, you kind of got involved with web developing, and you want to talk about your first side business there?
Yeah. Like I said, I was in the regionals. I was looking for something else to do. I had a subscription to Entrepreneur Magazine, and I would read through that and just constantly thinking of what can I do? What business idea could I put together? But all the business ideas that came across through there that I would read about, they'd always, maybe a mobile digital photography thing or whatever. But I would take everything and convert it into how could I make that something I can do on the internet so that when I'm in a hotel room, I can do that. And one of them that came across was mobile bartenders. you could be a mobile bartender. And Entrepreneur Magazine was talking about how to do that. And I thought, I know nothing about bartending, but I know I like to program, and maybe I could set up a website where bartenders could find jobs or gigs to do on the side of their maybe regular bartending. So I started bartendmyparty.com. I built it on a what's called Joomla. It's an old content management system, PHP based platform. And I just started hacking away at it, and the site existed. And I remember my kids, my oldest son, he would be on my lap because he was under 1, and he would like fall asleep on the keyboard as I'm doing this. It's just that type of thing. I think it took me absolutely forever to do it because nobody had formally taught me how to do this. But I think that one of the things a lot of us share is that passion to just keep going and trying. And I think that's something in the aviation crowd itself. But so I built that site, and I don't know, it was fun. It was an experience. I learned a lot, and that's what got me started on learning how to code. And I guess, sorry, I'll say this too. One of the things I didn't want to do is a lot of hiring it out because I didn't have the money to do it. And so then a lot of the development work fell on me to just figure it out and do it. And that's one of the reasons that was able to push on.
So
and do it.
That kind of, if you want to teach yourself how to, become a developer today,
Mm-hmm.
you've got Google and YouTube, and then there's paid courses, Udemy, whatever.
Right.
Back then, Google and YouTube were not as robust as they are now. I'm not even sure if YouTube was prolific yet.
Uh-huh.
How did you teach yourself back then to learn how to code?
A lot of trial and error. There still were resources. I think maybe Stack Overflow might have been around. I can't remember. A lot of forums. Forums were fairly popular.
Sure. Okay.
And some of the tools that I would use to plug into that Joomla platform, like I mentioned, had forums. And so there's all kinds of people on there saying, hey, how do I do this? Or how do I do that? It was just not nearly as easy as a quick Google search like it is now. Mm-hmm. But that's not to discredit any of our formally trained programmers out there, because it's just like us being pilots. People, you don't like to really hear somebody say, oh, I taught myself to fly. Right. There's a lot more to it than that, Sure. And I respect the professionally trained programmers as well. It's just, it's unbelievable how vast the industry is, and you can specialize in certain areas and do quite well for yourself if you put your mind to it.
Your bartending, that was probably more of a website than an app, because there were no mobile phones yet, at least, that were
right.
Doing applications. You sold that.
Right.
Can you discuss maybe how you found a buyer, mm-hmm. and in that how that went down?
Sure. I mean, we're not talking like big lawyer mergers and acquisition team mm-hmm. type business at that point. You know what I mean? It was, I used Flippa, which is still around, and I think it's a good resource. I haven't looked at them in quite some time, but it was an avenue for somebody to come and buy it. And the site no longer exists, so I guess I'm kind of sad to see it go.
Sure. Yep.
But I'm happy that it was kind of what kickstarted what I did. So.
You moved on from there to GoSnapX.com. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was a fun project where me and a fellow pilot shared a lot of the same passion for trying to create something, and that was a social-based, take a picture at a location, at a restaurant or at a business, share it with your friends and you get a kickback from that business, you know, a coupon code or things like that. Never really went anywhere, but that was kind of a learning experience, because you know, sometimes you think that just because you exist out, you know, okay, I made a website, it exists. That's like the beginning, you know, that's where marketing takes over, and you got to sell it too. So, you know, a lot of people will talk about how it's important to have a team, because no one person can be good at everything. Maybe there's those people out there. I don't know. I tend to fall on I like the back end development side, but when it comes to marketing and all that, that's not really my forte.
What role did the other pilot play in that business?
He handled a lot of the logistics behind the scenes of accounting and setup and marketing and idea creation and troubleshooting and helping really to just kind of spur the growth of what we were creating together.
And what time frame was that?
Boy, late 2000s, I would say. Yeah, probably 2010, maybe something right around there.
It almost sounds like, looking at that from a distance, it would be a great feature on a lot of the existing platforms that have taken off since then.
Right. I mean, with technology, it makes something like that concept could just go in a completely different way and much quicker to accelerate. But kind of like I was saying before, and this is funny about freelance web development as well. There's ideas everywhere. Everybody has an idea.
Yep.
And sometimes somebody will say, "Oh, you write software? I've got an idea for you." Well, okay, that's fantastic, but really it's not the idea that makes anything, it's the implementation of that idea. And it takes some really cool people and special skill sets to make that happen.
So I was going to save this for later, but since you brought it up, being a freelance developer, I'm sure you get quote unquote pitched ideas from friends, family, acquaintances, pilots, nonstop.
Right.
And being the guy who's pitched a lot of ideas to developers in the past, I've learned that, you know, a lot of my early ideas were very unrefined, undeveloped, and I had this grand vision of what I wanted, but trying to explain that to a developer, and they're like, well, how do you get from point A to point B on the most basic features or functionality? It's two different languages. What recommendations do you have to the idea guy who comes to you and, you know, inspires you, you know, with more than just an idea, you know, maybe a sector that you're unfamiliar with, but you see the benefit in it, and you're going to have to rely on their expertise to get to the finish line. What kind of recommendations do you have for the idea guy?
That's a tough question. I think at the very least, to keep pitching your idea when somebody says that's not going to go anywhere, to keep going after that idea, because maybe you just didn't convey it well enough to that first guy.
Yep.
And so in addition to that is, I guess, to have a full understanding, like kind of like I touched on before, that once you hire this developer to build this thing, that's the beginning. You know, that's where then you've got to have that plan past existence to getting it out to market and getting it sold, and making sure then once you have competition, if there's nothing else that already exists, that you're going to be able to stay ahead of that competition. Or if there already is competition out there, what makes your business any different than the other ones that already exist out there? Because if you're just building a duplicate of somebody else, yep, that's not going to really get you very far if they're already established for several years. So what's your target demographic? Why are they different? And that's, I think, huge, because I think about it all the time when I'm flying. You look down and you see all the houses and all the people, and the world is huge, right? So there's always a little bit of subsect for where we can target a small group with our idea and go after that. You know, you don't have to be the next Google or Apple or things like that. I think targeting a small group in a very effective way and solving those problems
Yep.
is the way to go about doing it. Touching back on your question, though, how do you pitch that to a developer? Maybe understand that the developer is looking at it from a very logical step by step. How am I going to create this for you? And you might, as the idea guy, be more of, oh, well, we're just going to make it happen, and this is the way it's going to be. So maybe the conveying the nuts and bolts of exactly how you want it done, that might be helpful to start and spur that conversation. Because maybe that developer's already heard the guy saying, this is what it's going to be. Well, help me get to that point. You know, give me the process. And that's part of the developer's job, though, too, is to get them there. But if you can share along those lines, then the conversation is going to be a little easier.
Absolutely. I remember when I was first getting started, I'm pretty sure that I frustrated at least a couple of my developer acquaintances because I didn't even understand the difference between front end and back end,
Okay.
UI, UX, database. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I've got this guy working on the back end database. He's like, I need a designer to design how you want it to look. And I didn't grasp it at first.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of tools out there, whether it's PowerPoint, Photoshop, et cetera, what's it called? The sketch of the screen, mock-ups.
The wireframes?
Wireframes, thank you.
Yeah.
I struggled with figuring that out. But what I did was I grabbed graph paper and I made the size of the screen, and then basically, just created the buttons that I thought needed to be in the right places, and then arrows to the next screen where that button would take you. And next thing you know, you've got 15, 20 sheets of grid paper filled up, with 4 to 8 images of a screen and descriptions. And now you can give that to a designer who can translate it, make it pretty. And then you can have a conversation with a backend developer, and then they start thinking through how it's going to work. And I think that's probably that process right there is one of those things that I was able to translate, from an idea to give it to somebody who could make something out of it.
That's an absolutely excellent recommendation, because what you did is told a story of what you want your idea to do. And that doesn't necessarily mean that your application needs to look exactly like what you did. Yep. Because frankly, that front-end designer, which I am not, I always say to guys, if you want a front-end designer, art brain type person, that's not me. Yep. But those are the guys and gals that are going to make it more sellable, make it more interactive. They're going to make it look better than what you or I could put on a piece of paper. But just by going through that process, you're telling the story of what you want your idea to be. And that is definitely the first thing that probably should be done when you do have that idea.
And it really helps you define what your product is, because it takes you from the big picture idea down to, all right, how does this actually work, and how does it accomplish what I want it to accomplish? But
right.
You've also started a few businesses since the Go SnapXcom days. And all these seem to almost fit perfectly with COVID.
Right.
And I'm just going to kind of bring them up and let you tell your story however you want, whether it's chronological or what. But you're doing Shopify. Right. And then you started a couple other websites, pineaptitude.com and qReveal.com.
Right.
The Shopify is something that any one of our listeners essentially could get involved with.
Right. And well, research. Let me just want to make sure that nobody thinks I built Shopify, because that's like a huge platform, right?
Sure.
Yeah. I've written a number of apps for that platform, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe if you could go in there and maybe talk about that
Sure.
business model and how it might relate to a furloughed pilot or a non-furloughed pilot for that matter, and then walk through the other two businesses that you've been working on.
Yeah, so I think one of the cool things, when apps first started coming around with Google and iPhone, and if you were a software developer, you're like, oh, I got an idea, let's build an app for that. It was even on the commercials, right? Well, Shopify is an e-commerce platform. So if you are a business and you want to sell stuff online, you can pay a monthly fee to Shopify. It's software as a service. And it's an excellent tool. It's probably one of the most popular around the world for getting a website online and selling your real products. They've got an app store, just like Google and Android, Apple. They have an app store to make your shop have additional functionality that maybe their Shopify basic software does not provide. And so with a business partner, we created Shopkeeper Tools. And there's a number of apps in there, primarily gift card related, that enhance the gift carding experience for businesses that utilize that Shopify platform to sell their stuff. And so it adds, the basic Shopify gift card is the person purchases a gift card for $10. They receive a link and it says, here's a gift card for $10. Well, what this app does basically is it allows that customer to write a personalized message. We also have 800 or 900 different designs. So you could select a birthday card or a Christmas card, and it's kind of neat. Right on the screen, it opens up on the screen. So it's interactive, it's mobile friendly, print layout friendly. And it took, just like many other businesses, it took 2 or 3 years to gain really any traction. And then it started doing pretty well in the last couple of years. And then COVID hits, crushes the airlines, right? But then I'm at home, not flying, and my email is blowing up because every business owner is shut down at home trying to sell gift cards, So it was a big pickup in business for us. So I don't want to say it was a good thing. It has grown the business. Overall, I think I'd rather not have COVID, but it coincidentally, that's just kind of how it happened and it evolved. But those apps are going through updates right now, and they're doing all right.
Where'd the idea for that specific business come into play?
Saw a need in the marketplace.
Okay.
We were just familiar with the Shopify platform,
okay,
and saw the need and kind of tried to corner that avenue.
Pineaptitude.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about that. And when did you start on that platform?
That started. That was several years ago, probably 3 years ago, and that was a project where, at least for me, it was let's do this casually. I think it took about 1.5 years to build, and it's a platform for teachers to communicate with their students. And I think, and this was kind of my business partner's idea, and he kind of pitched it to me. He's like, I think there's a need for this. And one of the cool things that I really like about it is, unlike just targeting a market and trying to go for things, it serves a really good purpose. And I think there was a lot of good stuff behind it, like connecting. It was one of the goals of it was communication between teachers and guardians to create a better relationship between guardians and children. And so in sort of a weird way, it really made me feel good that maybe there was some good coming out of that app for creating a good environment and communication amongst teachers, parents, kids. So
you started that well before COVID was a thing.
mm-hmm.
Is that something an individual teacher would subscribe to, or a school district, or both, or all the above?
Initially, and still today, it is something that an individual teacher subscribes to, although we did set it up initially to allow a district to get a license. And I think that was the ultimate goal. It really hasn't developed to that point. There's a number of people using it as a tool, and I'm just happy to see that. Mm-hmm. But it's not something that we're aggressively licensing to districts, especially though, like I know what you're saying with COVID, when students were at home. Yeah, it would have been a great, useful resource. I don't think we were at the point where marketing wise, we weren't hitting their radar when people were looking, and Google Classroom was a big thing, especially right when all that hit. So I guess the timing with Google Classroom and this app was not ideal for our sake, but it does things a little bit different than that Google Classroom. So I don't know, for the people that use it, I'm grateful, and I hope that they find use out of it.
So that's more of a hobby per se than something you're aggressively pushing in the marketplace.
Yeah, and a lot of times I'll build stuff, and I'm a realist too. I'm not going to keep throwing money at something that maybe, I'm not going to compete with Google Classroom. Just, you right. know what I'm saying?
Yep, absolutely.
So, but at the same time, I'm not going to destroy it and be frustrated about it,
Before we get into qReveal, what kind of team do you have behind you? Or is it just you doing the development? You mentioned you weren't the front end guy per se, but
right.
Looking at your websites, it looks like, they're quite refined, and especially qReveal, there's a lot there, and it's laid out in a very informative way.
Uh-huh. That's my business partner, Michael. It's a funny story how we met. I told you I did freelance web development in the late 2000s, and I was looking for work on there, just some side small stuff. And I think for maybe $50, somebody was looking for some little widget, something or another to be made. And I threw my name in the hat. I think maybe even with my proposal, I said, hey, take a look at this demo page. I already did it for you. If you don't want to pay me, you don't pay me, but whatever. Well, that started the communication. He was working for several different companies, or he was working for a company. We kept in touch for the different places he worked at. He's primarily marketing, front-end design, content writing, idea guy. He's fantastic. And we've built a relationship, but it's fairly funny. I've never met him in person. And we only really started texting or physical phone calls within the last year or two with some of the projects we've done. But we had communicated enormously through email in different projects. And so at some point several years ago, we just said, hey, you want to try a project together instead of him subcontracting some stuff to me. And it's worked out well because we complemented each other well. We both have our strengths and weaknesses, and it meshes pretty good together. So it's primarily just the two of us, and then we'll subcontract some other stuff if that's needed.
Okay. What, speaking of subcontracting and freelancing, are there any resources you use, and or where can our audience find you if they want to hire you for some freelance work?
Sure. Some of the tools we use for communication, Trello, TRELLO.com. I think that's a great platform to communicate with a team. Also, I think the price is minimal. I don't think we're paying a monthly fee. I don't think you need to do that unless you need have higher needs.
Yep.
We use support ticketing software through freshdesk.com, and that's worked well. Although on qReveal, we're trying out a new ticketing system within the WordPress backend, because that front end of that site is built with WordPress. I don't get involved with WordPress much, but Michael does a lot of that. And so that's where the support ticketing is. But qReveal.com is where our latest project is. And that's, you can reach us through there.
Yeah, let's talk about qReveal. How did that come about, and what all does it do?
Right. qReveal is a little play on words there at the beginning, QR codes, but we were never really fans of, hey, look, come at our QR business, because a lot of people don't even know what QR stands for. So reveal is really the concept, and we're revealing or giving something in the QR method. What it is it's media-rich, QR-based touchless menus that can be used by restaurants or businesses. We've had some, for instance, jet ski rental businesses.
Oh, cool.
It doesn't always have to be food that you need a menu for. It's just about anywhere that somebody's trying to put a piece of paper and list their products and show their prices. But this originated right after coronavirus, and my business partner said, hey, I think there's something here for not using traditional menus. And I didn't think much of it. I thought that it was going to go towards, I was picturing food trucks. You walk up to a food truck, they put a QR on the side of the van, you scan it, you order it right there. The guy or girl makes the food, and then you get a text message when your food's ready. And I know there's similar services. Square has come out with something similar, but it's expensive, and you pay per transaction, and you got to be using that point of sale system with Square. With qReveal, it's not a all-purpose everything solution for QR codes. There's definitely, QR codes aren't new. But what we do different is, instead of just providing you a QR code to something on your website, we provide you the means to make a menu. If you aren't using our service, you need to pay a designer to maybe write up your PDF and print that.
Yep.
And if your raw goods pricing changes and you need to modify your menu, you now need to contact your designer and pay a fee and get it changed and reprint and start that process over again. Or contact your web developer and go onto your website and change it. And so we've built this so that as a business owner, you can go on there and create your basically white labeled, branded to you menu that's accessible through QR codes. That's the premise behind it. I think there's a lot of benefits. And hopefully we're different enough from the other guys, because I know there's other guys out there that are doing things similar, but hopefully ours is different enough and fits some needs.
And it's super affordable from the restaurant's perspective. Basically the price of a meal essentially is what it kind of boils down to. When did you guys start this?
This is really just new to market within the last month or so. And we started building it this summer.
That's fascinating, because I mean, I know how long it's taken to build some of the stuff that I've been working on, and the fact that you guys are that far, that quick, is a testament to your guys' work ethic and skill set. And
when you're not flying a whole lot can get done, right?
Yeah, right. Yep. How many restaurants are you guys with right now?
We're still in the under 100 so far.
Yep.
But we're getting a little bit more traction and getting good feedback as well, because we're learning and evolving already. For instance, I just got a really cool bit of feedback the other day that I hadn't given much thought to. which is you've got menus like Uber Eats and online ordering platforms. Those already exist and they've been around for quite some time. But what we're almost targeting is on-site menus. Okay, so you're sitting at the table and ordering, and there's a difference there. For example, one of the main differences when you are ordering from Uber Eats, the upsell items come at the end of the transaction before you hit submit. Would you like to add chicken? Would you like to add this? Would you like to do that? Right before you get to the add button. But when you're on site and you are at a table, the business owner wants those upsells front and center. They don't want that to be 3 clicks in. They want that right at the front. And so, it's really neat when you start with an idea, you create something, and then somebody tells you, hey, that's not good enough because we want it this way. And then you learn from that and you evolve, and that's part of the process.
100%. Yep.
Yeah.
Are you ready to go bigger with this? Like, can I start talking to my local restaurants and being like, hey, how much you guys paying for your QR code? Because I know a guy,
right.
Type thing. Are you ready for that type of expansion? Obviously I have a small circle, but maybe some of our listeners might know people in the restaurant business and could refer them your direction.
Yeah, do it. So one of the benefits of having a number of projects from the past and failures in with that is learning to scale things when necessary. And from my view on it, from the back end development standpoint, is I'm always kind of thinking of what comes next. And so what we've done is looked at it from where are we gonna host this on what servers? Are we able to scale quickly if we need to? Mm-hmm. And so some of the steps that we took when we created this was with that in place. Now, it doesn't mean we're paying hundreds and hundreds of dollars a month in hosting now, but it means that we can, with a few clicks of the button, grow like that. So I would hope that, we could handle that. And one of the things that we know comes along with even just one new customer is a lot of data demand on the server, because if you're at a restaurant, you've got a number of people viewing that on a daily basis, and you need to have backups in case it goes down, and contingency plans in place. And I think we've thought that out, and I think that we're ready to move forward. But like I said, we're always learning too, right?
So if I'm a customer at a restaurant that uses qReveal, am I able to pay for my food through the app?
Not at this point. That's kind of what I mentioned about positioning ourselves for growth in the way that it was built from the beginning. That capability is there in placeholder form on the back end of the application. And we just are in development on that still. Sure. But I think we'd like to see where this establishes itself first. Yep. And if that seems like a real possibility, then maybe go that way. Maybe we go back to my food truck idea of scanning on the side of the food truck and ordering right there. I think that's kind of cool too.
And, with that too, I know that feature is by no means a necessity right now, because I've been to plenty of restaurants who use a similar QR reader that doesn't have that. And at the same time, I have been to a couple of restaurants that do have that feature, but it's such an early, we're so new into COVID, and this is going to become the standard going forward. And there's so many restaurants, that, I don't know how much competition there is out there, but I've got to imagine that you're one of just a handful, and you're at the leading edge on that. And I'm definitely rooting for you guys with that business. So
it's fun, but like I said before, there's, I think, a place for everyone as long as you're targeting something that's a little bit different. And I hope that this is, I think that it is, I truly believe that it is different. I see those same QR codes and I get a smile on my face when I see them at restaurants, and, you scan it. And then I see that, it went to a PDF that I have to zoom and pinch in, and I can't see it. And so this is maybe trying to solve that problem and the other problem. And so that's, and if that restaurant owner thinks that they like that, then cool. But if they see that a need for something else, then maybe they come to qReveal. So
yeah, that's great. That's exciting. Was there anything else that maybe you had hoped I would have asked or that we didn't touch on that you'd want to discuss?
I don't think so. When I looked up you, Tyler, I saw that you had a project as well, and I got a little excited, and maybe it's just simply because there's other people out there like me, and I think a lot of your listeners too, that share that desire to do something more. And I think that's pretty cool. You have a scheduling software app, is that correct?
Yep. It's a military scheduling solution. Basically, I was sitting in the scheduling desk for our air refueling squadron and pushing the schedule out on an Excel spreadsheet. As reservists, most of the guys are airline pilots. And by the time they open their email to an Excel spreadsheet that was converted to PDF so they can view it on their phone, they look at the schedule, want to participate next Tuesday. By the time they tell me, the scheduler, that they want to fly on that, well, now that turned into a check ride, and the flight's full, and the schedule is very dynamic. So ProFlight Blue enables the air crew to interact with the real-time schedule, which an Excel spreadsheet doesn't offer. So it's been quite well received. And I don't want to make this about ProFlight, but yeah, with that said, the one thing I've learned is that with guys like you, I've got some developers, and I call them magicians, man. You're turning ones and zeros into anything you want. And I've never heard, I'm like, hey, can you do this or can you do that? The answer has always been yes.
Absolutely.
So there's, it's literally cliche, but if you can dream it, you can do it. Like, you can literally create anything. And it's fascinating to see, just what's happened with technology in the, since the internet has been, prevalent. What, it was invented back in the 80s or something like that. We weren't on it until the early 2000s. It's been relatively normal, but then you've got the iPhone and Android, and it's just accelerating it, at enormous rates. And, hardware and software, they're kind of like essentially feeding off each other.
Right.
And it's fascinating where it's going, and everything is, we've got COVID, and, you've got a product for Shopify that, e-commerce is huge. So you've got a little piece of that, you've got Pine Aptitude, which, Google's out there, but there's a niche there too, especially in COVID, when everybody's at home and families are trying to figure out how to communicate with the teachers. And now you've got qReveal, which they're essentially eliminating paper menus from most tables, and you're right there and you're set up perfectly to take advantage of that. And it almost seems like now is just a marketing play for you guys.
It's called diversification, right?
Yep.
I think that's one of the cool things about the aviation industry is there's some really good people in it, and I think we share a lot of the same traits of personality and the drive. And face it, none of us would be in the career if we didn't have some sort of drive, because it takes a lot of work to get into the aviation field in general. And so, if you take that drive, and maybe you do the flying thing and then you take that drive and point it some other direction. For me, that's been a good thing.
Yep.
I've enjoyed that. And the important thing is that we just keep doing that so that when times like COVID do hit, we're hopefully a little diversified. Not that it's not scary to each and every one of us.
100%. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
But
yeah, man. Well, I've used up about an hour of your time. I know it's valuable. You've got a lot on your plate. So I just want to say thank you for coming on here. And, I'm fascinated by your story, and I'm quite confident that those entrepreneurs on here that listen to will be highly interested. And if you are listening and you go to a restaurant, check out their QR codes and see if they're what you want them to be. Because if they're not, maybe recommend to the manager, qRevealcom.
sure.
I'd love if our listener base could provide some sort of small spark for your company and get you moving forward. So
Yeah, thanks very much, Tyler. It's really nice to be on here. And in addition to that, I always like to field any questions if somebody has something not related to my businesses or things like that, but just you need development help or ideas. When I posted on that side hustle Facebook group,
yep.
A couple guys sent me Facebook messages and, free info. I pointed one guy to a friend that does do front end web development. And
Yep.
I think they're building a website right now. So I'm always happy to field questions and things like that, especially to those in the aviation field.
Do you mind sharing your email address? Maybe we can send people your way that way.
Yeah, I'll send you, how about Joe at qReveal.com. We'll go with that one.
Okay. Awesome, man. Well, appreciate your time and
all right.
Enjoy the rest of your week.
All right. Thank you very much, Tyler. I appreciate it.